Hello and welcome back to another video, taking another look at the new upcoming Test Drive Unlimited Solar Crown game, which is coming out, well, we don't know when it's coming out, but that has been announced fairly recently. So a lot of you enjoyed the video I did, sort of discussing more broadly the game, but I thought I'd do some videos focusing on the vehicles. So in today's video I'm going to be purely focusing on the cars. I am going to be putting up a video tomorrow taking a look at the bikes we could potentially see in the new game, because that's always a big part of Test Drive. But yes, this video purely looking at the cars. We did touch on the cars in the previous video where I did a sort of broader overall look at the game. But going to focus more on cars that I think will be in the game, or are more likely to be in the game. So I'm just going to quickly recap what we know already from the trailer. We already know we're getting a Chiron, a Regera, a Diablo, a 918, and whatever that red mystery car in the background is. So those are the cars we already know from the trailer. There were a few other cars spotted sort of in and around the trailer during the reveal stream. So an Apollo IE was spotted in some modelling shots. Dodge Challenger and Ferrari 488 were spotted in the background, little model cars and posters and things. So those are pretty much confirmed, as well as the Koenigsegg Agera and Porsches that were spotted in the licensing. So we could definitely see some 911s, Cayennes, the Agera as well as the Regera that we spotted in the trailer, and the Apollo, Dodge and Ferrari that were spotted during the stream as well. Speaking of Porsches, there are actually three in V-Rally, which, as I've said before, is also developed by KT Racing. So we have the Porsche 911 GT3 RS and the Porsche RGT, which are very similar, so you'd probably only see one GT3 RS style car, I guess. As well as those two modern Porsches, there is also an older 911, and yeah, these all fit in quite well with the fact that Porsche licenses were spotted in the credits for the trailer. So yeah, that's the Porsches that are in V-Rally. There are also two cars that were put up on the KT Racing website, which are an Alpine concept car. I'll try and find some images from their site here. So a sort of futuristic Alpine concept car style thing, and a classic Chevrolet Camaro. So another two cars that we could possibly see. I mean, they're on their website, so I'd have thought they are quite likely, along with the stuff in the trailer and spotted in the small print and in and around the trailer. I'd have thought they are very likely to be in there. But yeah, these are the two cars spotted on the website, the Alpine and the Camaro, which would be very cool to have in there. The Alpine alongside some of the classic ones maybe would be very cool. As well as possibly the new A110, and being a French studio, I'd imagine Alpine would feature in there more than before. I don't think it's been in the previous games, so I'd hope to see some Alpines in the new game. So as well as the Porsches, V-Rally does obviously have plenty of other cars split into several different categories. So the most likely kind of group of cars on V-Rally to possibly find their way into the new Test Drive is the normal rally vehicles. Now, I know I went over a lot of the V-Rally cars in the previous video when I was doing a sort of general thoughts on the game, but yeah, this is more specifically about cars, so let's have a quick flick through the car list here on V-Rally again. So we have the Alpine, the Mini, the Lancia Fulvia, the Ford Escort 1600, we have the Golf GTI, we have the Clio 16S, we have the BMW M3 rally car, we have the Fiat 131 of Bath. So these ones in the sort of main rally category I think are the most likely to see. They're the most like road cars. We have another Escort, we have the 911 which I showed earlier in the video. We have a DS3, which is quite an interesting one. We have a Stratos, which is of course in WRC as well. We have Citroen. We have the Renault Megane. Some of these I don't think are very likely, but some things like the hatchback ones, like the little Fiat, I could imagine a sort of road version of them appearing. We also have the Renault, Opel Manta, Lancia Row 37. I think some Lancias could potentially find their way in, because they're obviously in here and in WRC. The Porsches we mentioned earlier. There's the Skoda Fabia, Citroen DS3 again. So some of these little hatchbacks and things that are in here, the Delta would be quite cool. Mitsubishi Lancer rally car. What else have we got? Got another Delta, another Citroen DS3, Polo, Mini, and then we're back around to the Alpine again. So those are the sort of standard rally cars. I think that category is the most likely to make its way into the game, but there are other cars here in V-Rally which I will show, but some of them less likely, I think. Over in the Rallycross category then, we have the Renault Alpine A310, which I think is kind of possible given it's a French developer. KT is a French studio, and given we've seen the sort of Alpine concept on their website, and I think the Classic's likely to be there. So I think this could sit quite well along the A1, alongside the A110 and possibly the new A110. Then we have some other, obviously these are Rallycross converted versions, but Fiestas, Mini Countrymans and Civics, Beetles, Polos. We do also have buggies in V-Rally, which I find quite interesting. I don't necessarily think they'll all come to test drive, but you might remember in TDU3 we had the test drive, we had the buggy wreck as one of the cars that you go and find. I'm not sure if it was based on a real buggy, but something similar to that might possibly be brought from here. I don't know if they're planning on doing something similar to that again, but we did have a buggy before, so it is possible, not necessarily exactly like one of these, but something similar. There are also extreme Kana cars here in V-Rally, based on fairly ordinary cars, but some of them are a bit crazy. So we've got the CRZ, MX-5, Evo, RX-8, which would be quite cool. Mustang Fastback. This one's quite interesting because it's actually very similar to the Fastback we had in TDU2. Slightly different model year, but it's very similar to the starter car we had in TDU2. I don't think it'll be a starter car in this game because we've kind of already had those leaked, if that leak is correct. But I would kind of expect to see it in the new game. But yeah, that brings a close to the Kana cars here on V-Rally. So we finally moved to the sort of craziest category here on V-Rally, the hill climb cars. Now I don't expect them to appear in this form, but maybe this 3 Series, but as a road car. I don't know, but things like this I kind of wouldn't expect to see. These completely crazy machines getting crazier and crazier. So yeah, I think this category is unlikely. Now there are actually 4 other cars in V-Rally that I've missed previously, that I also missed in the previous video, which are the DLC cars that you can get. So there is a Camaro ZL1, a Citroen DS3, we've kind of already seen some versions of that. A Ford GT. Also in that list was a Shelby GT500 and a VW IDR. The IDR I kind of find unlikely. It's a bit like the hill climb cars. But the other ones, the ZL1 DS3, Ford GT, Shelby, I kind of think might, because it's a bit of an odd sort of road cars pack to have in a rally game. So potentially they were only there eventually intended for the new game, I don't know. But yeah, they're a bit odd to be putting in here, so maybe they were actually intended for the test drive game, we don't know, but I would kind of expect to see those DLC cars in the game. So yeah, I had to put up images of those because I don't have the DLC here in the game, which is why I missed it last time. But yes, that is the cars from V-Rally, a game also made by KT Racing. So potentially some of those could find their way into the new test drive game. There were also 3 cars leaked over on Reddit a long time ago before we saw any trailers or any information about this. So this could or could not be true. Even the guy that put it up there said they were from sources that he'd been told this, but didn't have it confirmed. But basically, a Renault Clio, a Polo GTI, and a Mitsubishi Evo are going to be your choice of cars at the beginning. So the Clio, there is an older version in V-Rally, which I'll show here, which I don't think it'll be that version. It's kind of too outdated. There is a Polo GTI in WRC8 and V-Rally. Obviously the modern rally car, so it'd be the road version of that, I would imagine. And the Evo, there is an older one in those games, but there's also an Evo 10. So potentially Evo 10, newer Polo GTI, and the newest Renault Clio could be your 3 starter cars. Those are the ones I would imagine would be used. But yeah, those cars are all in some form or another in V-Rally and WRC, so that leak kind of sounds plausible at least. So as well as working on V-Rally, KT Racing also develop the WRC games every year, which do have two Lancias in them. They have the Fulvia and the Stratos, which I think are likely to come across to the new test drive, particularly the Stratos, as we did have that as a wreck in the previous game in TDU3. I would quite like to see a Delta as well. Obviously we had that as a starter car in TDU2, and that is over in V-Rally, so potentially we could see some Lancias, ideally all three, but yeah, I'd have thought the Stratos and the Delta are probably the most likely, but the Fulvia would be cool as well, because yeah, like I say, we have the Stratos and Fulvia in both of their rally games. So anyway, I would have thought at least some Lancias would find their way to the new game, or at least hope so. So now that we've looked at all the cars that have been sort of shown, well, confirmed almost by being shown in the trailer and on the website and in and around the trailer, and we've looked at some of the cars in the other games produced by KT Racing, as well as some leaks and stuff, it's time to move on to some of the cars in the previous games. So, I've had a quick, well, I've been given some information about which cars are in both previous games. There's some that are the exact same version in both games, so I'll run through those first, and then we'll move on to some that are close, but slight variations from game 1 to 2. So, cars that are identical in both previous games are 1966 AC Cobra, the Caterham CSR, CSR 260, Corvette C1, Ferrari 250 GTO, Ferrari 308 GTS. For PlayStation users, you wouldn't have had those in the first game. They were Xbox and PC, but they were in both games. 612 Scaglietti, the Dino 246 GTS, and the Ferrari Enzo and F40. Obviously, two of their higher-end Ferraris. There was also the 2006 Ford GT, I showed earlier, was also in V-Rally as a DLC car, so is very, very likely to be in the next game. Mercedes 300 SL from 1957, the Zonda C12 S Roadster, the 2005 one, the Roof RK Spider from 2006, the Roof RT12 from 2006, the Roof RT Turbo from 2005. I'll try and find images of at least some of these cars to go while I'm going through these. Shelby Cobra Daytona, 1963, and the Weissman MSF3 from 2006, which is very cool because it's not really in anything else at all. So I'd have thought all of those, I would hope they'd come forward into the third game, being that they've been in the previous two. The Roofs, I really want to see them come forward, but they've got a Porsche license now, so they might just scrap those. It would be a shame, but they might think, we've got Porsche, we don't need Roof, because it was partly brought in before because people couldn't get the Porsche license, but they are cool cars, so I would like to see those as well as the Porsches. I just hope they don't replace them with the Porsches. So those are all the cars that are the same in both games. There are also a lot of cars that are very similar in the first two games. For example, we have the Alfa Romeo 8C, 2006 in the first game, 2007 in the second game. We have the Brera with the 06 and the 08 models. We have the two different Ascaris, the KZ1 and the KZ1R. We have DB9s from 2005 and 2006 in coupe and convertible form. The same thing happened, they jumped a year. We have Audi TTs, they're slightly different models, they're not just different years. So we had the TT Sport, the S and the RS in the second game, the Sport in the first game, from 2005, 9 and 10. We also have the Chevrolet Corvette Z06, which became a ZR1 in the second game, Dodge SRT10, the Viper. We had three different versions across the two games. Ferrari F430 moved from 04 to 08 in the second game. Similarly with the Spider, it moved from 05 to 09. Ford Mustang GT jumped 5 years from 5 to 10, which is a different model of it, but could still potentially see that. We had the E-Types, the 61 and then the 64. With these, we've only really had the coupes in the games, and that's all we seem to get in any racing game, so I'd really, really, really like to see the convertible, because the convertible's a really nice looking thing, and the coupes, well, I think it's hideous. But yeah, we never seem to get the convertible, so that would be cool. But either way, an E-Type is very cool to have in the game. The Jaguar XKR, we had the 05 in the first game and the 2010 in the second game. The Esprit V8 and Series 3, so we had a 2003 V8 in the first game and a 1981 S3 in the second game, which was one of your starter cars. We had a Mercedes SL55 from 06 and 2010, two SL65s across the two games, Mercedes SLR McLaren 2006 and 2008. So this is an interesting one, because I thought there was a problem with licensing the SLR, because it suddenly disappeared from Forza after Horizon 2, or one of the motorsports, I think. But I always thought there was a licensing issue, but I've realised it's actually in several other games. It's in Gran Turismo, it's in The Crew 2, so it's obviously possible to license it, so maybe we could see that in the third game, which I would really like, and given it's been in 2 previous games, it's possible. But yeah, I love that car, so hopefully we'll see that, because a lot of Forza's missing it at the moment. So yeah, we also have the Roof RGT in 2004 in the first game, 07 in the second game, so that would be kind of cool. Spiker C8, 01, 08 and 2010, I really want to see that. It's my favourite of the Spikers, it's sort of the most iconic Spiker, and I really think Spiker should be in the game, so I'd really hope to see the C8. And yeah, I don't think I'd have heard of Spiker if I hadn't played the previous test drive games, so the C8 really needs to be in there as the sort of most iconic Spiker. It was missing from the second game, well, for me, because I played it on PlayStation. I think if you played it on Xbox, there was one in the dealership. There was also one in the casino, but I never had the casino DLC, so yeah, I really missed out on those playing TDU2, so hopefully we'll see those in the third game. And the final car on the list is the TVR Sagaris, which the 04 and 06 are in the 2 games, so that would be really cool to see. But yeah, as I mentioned with the cars before, Roof I would really like to see, but I think it is quite likely, given unlikely they'll come back, given they've got a Porsche license, and everyone can obtain that now. I really do hope they keep the Roofs in there, though. But yeah, I know licensing isn't always easy, but yeah, all of those cars spotted in the previous 2 games, the ones that are the same versions and similar versions, I really don't see why they shouldn't be in the game. But yeah, I know licensing isn't easy, and that always throws up issues getting cars into games, but hopefully those will all be in there as they've been in the previous games. But yeah, like I say, I think Roof's the least likely of those because they've got Porsche now, but I really hope the rest of them are in there in some form or another at least, even if not exactly the same as before. So I've gone over and listed a lot of cars from the trailer, as well as cars from the previous 2 games, which is a long list of vehicles, which obviously won't all be in the game, it's definitely not at the start. So which cars do I think are going to be the most likely? So obviously the cars spotted in the reveal stream, so in the trailer and in and around the trailer, are confirmed. So the stuff spotted in modelling in the background and in the trailer, as well as the Agera and Porsches spotted in the licensing part of the reveal. So those could very well be in the game. Well, they're very unlikely not to be in the game. And the Porsches could be the 3 that I showed from V-Rally potentially, as well as a Cayenne, obviously, which we don't have in either of the rally games. The classic Camaro and the Alpine concept on the KT website are also pretty much confirmed. I mean, they're on their website, they're very likely to be in there. The Reddit leak cars aren't confirmed, but I would imagine they would be the starter cars. We don't know specifically which models, but Clio, Evo and Polo are of some form, and these are all in V-Rally in some form or another, so I'd expect those in some form or another. Just don't know exactly which ones. Possibly The Evo and Polo could be the same as the one in V-Rally, but the Clio in V-Rally is a lot older, so I doubt it will be that model. But yeah, some form of Clio, Evo and Polo will almost definitely be in there as the starter cars, if that leak is correct. The other cars I think are likely are some Lancias, so Fulvia, Stratos and Delta. The Fulvia and Stratos are in both V-Rally and WRC8, and the Stratos was obviously in the older test drive game, and the Delta was in TDU3 and in V-Rally, so I think we could definitely see those two, and potentially the Fulvia as well, so I think Lancia is very likely as a brand. Obviously V-Rally was a very long list of cars, a lot of which I think is unlikely, apart from the DLC cars. I think they're very possible, because they never really fitted into a rally game particularly, and were possibly only ever intended for an upcoming game, which could be Test Drive. So I would have thought we'd see those, the Camaro, the Ford GT, and the Shelby. But yeah, apart from that, I don't think we're likely to see any cars from V-Rally, really. But yeah, the GT was obviously in V-Rally as well as the previous two games, and the Shelby was in V-Rally and in TDU2, so I think they're very likely. But yeah, hopefully we will see those, as well as some of the other cars that featured in both of the previous games. Maybe not all of them. Like, for example, the roofs, as I said before, I'm not sure will make their way here because of the Porsches, which would be a shame. But yeah, hopefully we get some of those cars as well. But there's none that I think, oh yes, we'll definitely be getting that, because it's in their new games as well as in both TDUs. But yeah, apart from the cars spotted in and around the trailer and in the reveal stream, obviously the rest is purely a prediction, and is in no way confirmed, so don't expect all of these cars to appear in the game. But yeah, purely a prediction based on the previous games and on other games by KT Racing. But yeah, I've run over a few at the end there that I think are very, very likely to be in the new game. But yeah, hopefully we get some of the other ones that cross over between the previous two games. But yeah, I am looking forward to hearing more about this game. I know it's still in very early development, but I hope more cars are confirmed at some point. Potentially some of the ones we've looked at today. But yeah, this is probably the game I'm most looking forward to at the moment of the games currently in development. And I will be doing a similar video on the bikes tomorrow, so make sure you watch out for that if you want to see which bikes I think might end up in the new Test Drive game. But otherwise, that is going to be all for this video, so thank you very much for watching, and I'll be back with the next video very soon.